And this is all happening as China continues to flex its military muscle in the Indian Ocean region. Remember, this is not new. China has been doing this for quite some time now. But now it's become more aggressive, almost menacing. And why wouldn't it? Because this strategy is working out perfectly for Beijing. One by one, they're trapping countries in debt, bullying them into submission, and slowly but surely building military infrastructure all over the Indian Ocean. Let me show you how this works. We'll begin with the latest development. On Monday, 2 Chinese warships docked at the Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. These are the first ever Chinese warships to visit Hambantota since that port was handed over to China. Now what does this port give China? Let me explain. The Hambantota port is located on the southwestern coast of Sri Lanka. It's just 16 kilometers from the mainland India, less than 100 kilometers from the Indian mainland. And this is a strategic worry for India. From this port, China can monitor Indian vessels and ports. Not just that, they can also refuel and resupply their warships here. In effect, China has an outpost in the Indian Ocean from where they can spy on Indian assets. This is exactly what happened during the Cold War. You may remember the term gunboat diplomacy. It refers to the strategy of using gunboats or warships to exert pressure on other states, for instance, patrolling the coast or blockading ports. Well, that strategy is back, and this time China is using it against India. First things first, let's look at the warships. They were welcomed by top Lankan officials, including the Navy Chief and the Defense Ministry Secretary. Interestingly, Sri Lanka's Army Chief was not present at the ceremony. Reports say he was busy with some other work. Anyway, these warships are part of the 48th escort mission to the Gulf of Aden. What's that? It's a United Nations mission. China is a contributor to this UN mission. And what do these ships do? They escort merchant ships. These ships carry humanitarian aid, peacekeeping missions, and the convoys are targeted by pirates. So these Chinese warships protect the ships. At least that's what the official story says. The reality is very different. This is nothing but gunboat diplomacy. We have proof. A Lankan newspaper reported it. It said these Chinese warships would engage in joint naval drills with the Sri Lankan Navy. Do you know what's the timing of this drill? Right when the civil war in Yemen is raging. Reports say the Chinese ships will sail to Yemen soon. Basically, they're taking advantage of the chaos in Yemen, projecting themselves as peacekeepers and expanding their clout in the region. Now let's look at the bigger picture. Since 2007, China has invested more than $15 billion in Sri Lanka. 15 billion with a C, that's the kind of money we're talking about. Around $8 billion of this loan has gone into physical infrastructure, the rest into financial assistance. Now most of these projects were never completed, like this airport in the Maldives, the one in Sri Lanka and the one in Pakistan. But guess what? All 3 airports are now managed by Chinese companies. China has taken a controlling stake in all of them. Again, this is the debt trap that we've been talking about. First, they lend money to these countries, knowing fully well that they won't be able to repay. Then China takes control of the assets and uses them to further its political interests. Same thing happened with the Hambantota port. Sri Lanka needed money, so it turned to China. The deal was signed in 2007, and within 2 years, the work was completed. But it was a white elephant. The port was built at a cost of around $1.12 billion. But in the first 9 months of operation, it made only $3.3 million. 3.3 million. Compare that with the amount spent and you'll get the idea. The port was a money pit. Sri Lanka realized this, and in 2017, they offered the port to India. Colombo wanted a joint venture, but India refused. Now that deal is long forgotten. China is running the port and using it to carry out military operations. Why doesn't India intervene? You raise a very important point. India is Sri Lanka's neighbor and a close friend, but it's staying put. India has not protested these Chinese operations. Why is that? Some experts say it's because of the domestic situation in Sri Lanka. The country is on the brink of bankruptcy. People are protesting on the streets. So, India is focusing on the humanitarian crisis. Plus, it doesn't want to antagonize the Rajapaksas. They still wield considerable power in Sri Lanka. So, India's going slow. It's trying to play the long game. The question is, can it? We've told you how China used debt diplomacy to gain control of the Hambantota port. But what about the other 2? How did China take control of those? Let's start with the Maldives. It's an archipelago of islands. It lies in the Indian Ocean, just southwest of Sri Lanka. China helped the Maldives build an international airport there. But look at where it's located. Ibrahim Nosir International Airport is located on Holhumidu Island. The runway is just 3 kilometers from the capital city Male. And guess what? The Chinese company that built the airport also owns it. It's called Makal, the Maldives Airports Company Limited. Guess who holds the biggest stake in this company? China. Reports say Beijing owns 34.5% of this airport. The rest is owned by the Maldivian government. Again, this was sold as a development project, but it was never about development. It was always about real estate. I'll give you an example. In 2017, the Maldivian parliament passed a resolution. It allowed foreigners to buy land and properties in the country. This included reclaimed islands, house reefs, and house gardens. Basically anything that was owned by the state could be bought by foreigners, and most of these properties were bought by Chinese investors. So much for sovereignty. Then we come to Pakistan. Let me show you something on the map. This is Gunboat Port. It's located in southwestern Pakistan, close to the Iranian border. Look at where it's situated. It's close to the Strait of Hormuz. This strait is a crucial oil artery. Around 20% of the world's oil passes through here. Control Gunboat Port, and you can monitor the entire trade. China knows this, which is why it invested heavily in this port. Here's what's at stake. The port has a deep-water east coast, has rail links, road networks, pipelines, and oil tanks. It's an all-weather port, which means it's operational all year round. And now China owns it. So, how did it happen? In 2017, Pakistan decided to upgrade this port. The work involved deepening the draft, basically increasing the port's capacity. The cost was shared equally between Pakistan and China. But the way the agreement was structured, China got more say in the deal. It got a 40-year lease on the port, plus a 99-year lease on the land. In effect, China now controls the port, and Pakistan has no say in the matter. Just to give you an idea of how big this deal is, in 2013, when the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor was announced, the Gunboat Port was supposed to be its western terminus. In fact, the entire corridor passes through this port. How did China manage to influence these countries? It's a question that experts have been grappling with. The usual answer is money. China lent billions of dollars to these countries, which they couldn't refuse. Plus, they had ulterior motives. The Chinese loans came with political strings attached. Take the case of the Maldives. Its former president, Abdullah Yamin, was arrested last year. He was convicted of money laundering. Coincidentally, he awarded the airport project to China right before his arrest. Similarly, Pakistan, when Imran Khan was prime minister, he visited Beijing and signed a host of deals. Days later, he survived an attempt to oust him. The same Imran Khan who's now been removed from power, and the same Gunboat Port, is now being used by the Chinese. What does this tell you? China uses money, infrastructure, gambits, to expand its influence. It buys out governments, indebts them, and gradually builds its military and economic clout. Think about it. By owning the Maldives airport, China can monitor Indian assets. The Gunboat port gives them access to Indian waters. And don't forget, China is also developing a military base in Japan. It's located on the el-Mandeb Strait. This strait connects the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden. Again, China is tracking the shipping lanes here. And what about the Gunboat Port? It gives China control of the Strait of Hormuz. As you can see, it's a grand plan. China is squeezing India from all sides, from the Maldives in the west, Sri Lanka in the south, and Pakistan in the east.